Well, good afternoon, everybody. So grateful to be with us here at ULT San Diego for the Aquarian series. Today's presentation is entitled Helena, Petrovna, Blavatsky in honor of White Lotus Day. Happy White Lotus Day. But this evening, I'd like to say today, we come together to celebrate the profound teachings of Helena Petrovna Blavatsky on this annual White Lotus Day. This special day, this presentation is going to be given to you in two parts. The first part features our own Miluka Rivera from ULT, California, who will share with us meaningful excerpts from The Voice of the Silence by Madame Blavatsky, and also on the importance of the feminine in the philosophy. The second part of the presentation today will be given to us by Will Wyndham at the ULT in London, UK. And this portion will be on the masters, their teachings that were meant especially for this transition period that we are in during the 20th and 21st centuries, and why their residence of the masters is at Shambhala. So we thought it would be best, because we have a two-part presentation, to wait until the end of both presentations to open up for questions and comments. So please hold your ideas, your thoughts, and your questions until then. And now, before her part of this wonderful twofold presentation, our very own Miluka Rivera is going to do a reading from The Voice of the Silence. Thank you, Miluka.
Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon today, and I hope they enjoy our presentation. It's been done with a lot of love, as everybody else do it all the time, that they participate in these great opportunities and lectures from many different parts of the world. And thank you very much for your support, everybody who is attending today. And interesting enough, May is also the May Day on the 1st is also a celebration of the workers, but also the women took big part of that celebration back then in the 1800s. And it just happened that HPB2 was inspired. She was very inspiring to all these females that had no voice. And as you know, that back then the women were limited. They were just, they don't have possession. They were just housewives. They were not allowed to study. The only people that had the opportunity to study was those women who were in the upper class, but they were taught privately because the parents usually will hire tutors to teach them arts, humanity arts and music, and they actually groom women so that they become a good prospect for marriage. That was the intention behind the grooming. So I would like to know if I'm ready, if I can share my slides. Well, H.P. Blavatsky, as you know, was a messenger of the Masters of Wisdom. On this Lotus Day, 134 years later, we gather to honor a spirit whose light continues to shine brightly in accordance with HPB's testament request. Her wishes was that she would like for us to present or select quotes from The Voice of the Silent, among other books. Her last publication was in 1889, a translation from Sanskrit based on the Golden Book of Precepts, which offers a whisper of illumination. Now I'm going to present a clip of The Voice of the Silent, especially done for this class.
The Voice of the Silence by HPB.
All is permanent in man except the pure bright essence of Alaya. Man is its crystal ray, a being of light, immaculate within, a form of clay material upon the lower surface. That beam is thy life guide and thy true self, the watcher and the silent thinker. Thou hast to saturate thyself with pure alaya, become as one with nature's soul thought. At one with it, thou art invincible. In separation, thou becomes the playground of Samvriti, origin of all the world's delusions. You have to learn to part thy body from thy mind, to dissipate the shadow, and to live in the eternal. For this thou hast to live and breathe in all, as all that thou perceivest, breathe in thee, to feel thyself binding in all things in self. Thou should not separate thy being from being and the rest, but merge the ocean in the drop within the ocean. So shalt thou be in full accord with all that lives. Bear love to men as though they were thy brother's pupils, disciples of one teacher, the sons of one sweet mother. Help nature and work on with her, and nature will regard thee as one of her creators and make obeisance, and she will open wide before thee the portals of her secret chambers. Lay bare before thy gaze the treasures hidden in the very depths of her pure virgin bosom. Unsoiled by the hand of matter, she shows her treasures only to the eye of spirit, the eye which never closes, the eye for which there is no veil in all her kingdom.
HPB left behind her wealthy aristocratic life to seek wisdom.
Very amazing that a person so young is willing to leave everything behind. 1968, HPB was trained for 7 years under the tutelage of the Masters of Wisdom at the Tachilhungo, the Tibet monastery. Well, it goes this way. So she traveled for 25 years, and then she came on the training because she needed to master her amazing psychic abilities, but they needed to be mastered. And she have what the master called a very spirited spirit, that it was better to leave it alone because it will cause a great harm if you try to, discipline on it. So she have a hard time. And in fact, I think that they insinuate that she left to the world to do her mission, but somehow there was some part of her that was kept. I never understood that too well, but there was something that was there, maybe protecting her, perhaps. Now, here is a picture of HPB and her sister next to her, if you look to the right. And then behind his sister is General Olcott. And then Annie Besant is on the right. And another gentleman that I'm not sure who he is, but I imagine he was part of the movement. What is very interesting about HPB is that her sister said that before her mother died, the mother was only 28 years of age when she passed. But before she died, She witnessed that the mother told HPV, you are different. You will never have a normal life, and you will suffer because of it. At the time, HPV was only 11 years old. HPV has so much influence in not only during that time, but during after she passed, she continued to have great influence in religion and philosophy and astronomy. They have done a search and corroborated some of her writings, especially pertaining science and astronomy. In fact, she talks about that about what is the sun, what is it that makes the sun be what it is, and before anybody could discover it, she talks about that it was a big magnetic ball. It's only a reflection. What we see is a reflection, the same way we just see the reflection of the moon. So the sun is only what we see is a reflection, and the sun also. It was told that the sun move, and they talk about the sun rays and then go down at the sunset time. And then she pointed, no, the sun is almost motionless. The one that goes to the sun is the earth. When the earth gets closer to the sun, then you experience that the sun is closer to us, which had happened during the solstice, right? That's what is a very holy time of the year, because you are in close proximity of this amazing magnetic spiritual influence. That's why all these seasons are so sacred. And we're still in spring, which is another very sacred. It's renewal, rebirth, and hopefully we will all experience in our own small or big way that. Then she talks about Mars. She said Mars is very hostile. The population there, is no longer is not visible because they are about to awaken. They are in obscurity and they are about to awaken. So all these, fantasies that they're going to Mars and going to do, all kind of stuff in Mars, it's not going to happen. Not only that, it's just that Mars is a very hostile climate. It's extremely hot during the day and extremely cold during the nighttime. And also, there's things that they will stop man from doing certain things. They allow a robot to go there so that they can confirm that a lot of this philosophy were correct. It was right how she described it. The Venus, they also saw the planet of love and so beautiful and all that. But with the advance of astronomy, they discover, wait, Venus is also very hostile. It's falling apart. HPB said it's just that I have completed her cycle and now it's just falling apart. It has a lot of volcanic and a lot of storms and all that because it's the beings in there, the spiritual beings of this, they are about to move on into higher levels, like everything in nature. It's an ascending cycle. So Venus is ready to pass their principles to probably another planet, the same way the moon did it to the Earth. The Earth is our mother, right? But it was just, we came in different form until we became as solid as we are. And as you notice, the civilization gradually changed in shape and all that. Then HPV, when she wrote the book Isis Unveiled, the title actually initially supposed to be Isis Veiled, but because there was another book with the same title, in the last minute, they call it Isis Unveiled. So that title, I think it even created more curiosity, and it was a bestseller. It brought a lot of problems because she took a lot of heat because she was criticizing, science and churches and mediums and all that. So she did it very, she was very brave, because this book was important, but at the same time, there was a lot of controversy. We know that the Secret Doctrine book is a wonderful legacy that people have put together and divided, and especially when they do classes about the Secret Doctrines, they do different topics, which that's supposed to be how we're supposed to study the Secret Doctrine. Now, let's talk about the women's movement. That was so important, and she got a lot of support from the females of the time, because they were struggling, and they saw in HPB, they saw in her the light, and helped them with the fighting toward this resistance for their freedom. They could not vote, as you know, and in fact, the United States was the last country in the world to accept the women's voting rights. And, well, theosophy, there was a lot of theosophists that were part of this movement. As you see in this picture, there were Women's Freedom League and the Women's Suffrage. They were, all these persons in these pictures are theosophists. Charlotte Desport and Alison Newlands. And this is after HPV died, the movement grew and grew, as you know, and other people took. But some of the people were in touch with HPV prior to her departing, and but it was done in August 19, 1909, and this is another group of ladies who also were fighting and promoting the women's rights. Now, there are 3 theosophists in here that are very famous, who helped the movement and had contact with the masters. Annie Besant, who was also a famous journalist at the time, Mary Gerber, and then Mabel Collins was the one that wrote he actually was an instrument for the Light of the Path, because the book was dictated to Hilarion, as she wrote in a book that she gave HPB, and we have the proof of that too. Well, before HPB, there were another lady by the name Hypatia. She was what we consider the last theosophist prior this movement. She was already liberated. She, in fact, was teaching men. She had a class of only male students of all different religions in Alexandria. She taught to very important figures, including Synesius, and she was recognized as the first female scientist, mathematician, teacher, and Neoplatonist. She also followed the philosophy of Plotinus. Plotinus was the one that, the first one that mentioned the word theosophy. She, unfortunately, she was a Neoplatonist during that era, and she, with the ascendant of the Roman Christianity, they needed to get rid of her. And in fact, they borrowed her ideas of uniting all the religions and all that. And as you know, they burned a lot of the papyrus from the Alexandrian library. And what they did to her was horrible. They tortured her and they killed her. And then another case, it was later on in 1429, Joan of Arc was another, he was also a clairvoyant. And she played a key role in defending the siege of Orleans. And what is sad is that she also, after she won the war, or she was the one responsible for the success of this war. She was also burned and ultimately died as a martyr. And she was later on, of course, canonized by the Catholic Church as a saint, like it happens so many times. But the thing that is sad is HPB said that when she did traveling all over the world, she said they are male and female shamans. Shamans, they have powers. They're very connected to the earth. They can find cure for illness, and they know what the medicinal plants are. They are very much in connection with the earth, and they're here to protect the earth. They are the stewards of the earth. And in fact, it is said that the first race was red, like the Indian, and the role was to protect the earth. And then the second race was Asian, yellow. They're supposed to be the most spiritual of all because they're connected with the air. And then the third one was the black. They're supposed to be the guardians of the water. And then the Aryan, which we call it fourth race, but it's actually fifth race because she said the first one doesn't count it because it was not very, very physical. It was almost see-through or translucent. So the last race was what we call it, the Aryan. It was Hindu Aryans, and then they became the white Aryans, European Aryans. She said that they were that race was trusted with the energy of fire. And as you know, it happened that the fire is being misused because they do atomic bombs. And who are they were making all this, They are those Aryans, those people that wasn't supposed to do that. And then it continues to do even more harm to nature. So that's how it's supposed to be. The distribution of duties and protection to the earth was divided into different cultures and races. And it was like that for a long time. They used to have even fire ceremonies and all that, but it was used for good things, never used for violence or to kill people. And it's an abuse of the atomic. And the atoms and all that come from the energy of the sun, sacred sun. Then Countess Wachtmeister, she worked closely with Helena Petrovna Blavatsky from 1885 until her death in 1891. She did a lot of work for theosophy. She was the one that acquired the 17 Limestone Road, where HPB wrote the Secret Doctrine. She witnessed everything that happened. She has many stories to tell in this book. If you ever want to get it, it's a wonderful book. And she was a good friend. And she also helped Annie Besant to form the lodges in the United States. Post HPB passing, she wrote, as I mentioned, this book, which also tell you the story about all what she went through to be able to write this amazing book. I know the time is up, so I don't have much time to talk about it, but you could do it on your own. And then, as you know, a lot of the sources, a lot of things that I brought into here, the source is from the extraordinary life and influence of Helena Blavatsky by our friend Sylvia Cranston, which is her pen name. Her pen names is Sylvia Cranston, but she is Anita Atkin. And she was a good friend of ours, and she put a lot of the people in New York under her wings and tried to help us. So we're grateful for her too, and to have made such an extraordinary biography of HPB. So on May 8th was the anniversary of John Brown, an American abolitionist. It was a time when the World War II officially ended in Europe. And then the smallpox was eradicated, eliminating this infectious threat. And then Harry Truman became the 33rd president it's just a coincidence because HPV died in this day.
New humanity. Real theosophy is altruism, and we cannot repeat it too often. It is brotherly love, mutual help, unswerving devotion to truth. If once men do but realize that in this alone can true happiness be found, and never in wealth, possessions, or any selfish gratification, then the dark clouds will roll away and a new humanity will be born upon earth. Then the golden age will be here indeed. Madame Blavatsky. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now we will move on to the second part of the presentation this afternoon. And Mr. Will Wyndham is going to do the honors. But before he gets started, we're going to have a reading, a poem from Sir Edwin Arnold. Now, Will?
It's fine. Let me just set that up. Okay, is that working now?
Now it is.
Ah, here we go.
Okay, let me make that a bit bigger.
Beautiful.
Okay, well, over to you, Monica.
Well, thank you. We'll do a reading of Sir Edwin Arnold's poem, The Light of Asia, which is inspired by the fourth noble truth of Buddhism. So here we go. The fourth truth is the way. It openeth wide, plain for all feet to tread, easy and near the noble eightfold path. It goeth straight to peace and refuge. Here, manifold tracks lead to yon sister peaks, around whose snows the gilded clouds are curled. By steep or gentle slopes, the climber comes where breaks that other world. Strong limbs may dare the rugged road which storms, soaring and perilous, the mountain's breast. The weak must wind from slower ledge to ledge with many a place of rest. So is the eightfold path, which brings to peace. By lower or by upper heights it goes. The firm soul hastes, the feeble tarries. All will reach the sunlit snows. The first good level is right doctrine. Walk in fear of Dharma, shunning all offense. In heed of karma, which doth make man's fate in lordship over sense. The second is right purpose. Have good will to all that lives, letting unkindness die and greed and wrath, so that your lives be made like soft airs passing by. The third is right discourse. Govern the lips as they were palace doors, the king within. Tranquil and fair and courteous be all words which from that presence win. The fourth is right behavior. Let each act assoil a fault or help a merit grow. Like threads of silver seen through crystal beads, let love through good deeds show. 4 higher roadways be. Only those feet may tread them which have done with earthly things. Right purity, right thought, right loneliness, right rapture. Spread no wings. For sunward flight, thou soul, with unplumed vans. Sweet is the lower air, and safe and known the homely levels. Only strong ones leave the nest. Each makes his own.
Well, thank you very much, Monica, for reading that beautiful extract. So today, on these retrospective occasions, when we look back and celebrate that wonderful life of HPB, which ended 134 years ago, we seem to travel back into the past, partly with a view to put ourselves, juxtapose ourselves back into the things that were happening at that time, so that we may learn from them and apply them to the future that we're about to experience. And the purpose, as Maluka said in her first talk, the purpose and great sacrifice of HPB's life and the masters behind her was that humanity in the 20th and 21st centuries would have the requisite knowledge, the true understanding of who we are, how nature really works, that the material is a veil for great dimensions of nature which we must find and understand and use correctly. And that correct use of all our talents, Maluka mentioned at the beginning that women in the 19th century were deprived of proper education unless they were particularly wealthy. Not long before then, it was also the case that most average people were uneducated. So the question we have after 100 and so many years of this wonderful boon of education is how we're going to use it. Now, the 20th century has been dominated by a derivation of materialism called physicalist scientism. And unfortunately, we are reaping the dire effects of that lack of knowledge, that ignorance of the real beauty and depth of nature, which we've refused to acknowledge. So the question is, in the 21st century, how are we going to give our children, grandchildren, and their children the right sort of education, the right sort of knowledge about the purposes of life, the constitution of our soul, that materialism and physicalism is a reductive, destructive way of looking at life. And that it is Theosophy's purpose to fight for recognition of the occult side of nature. That is really, really important. This is what HPB has been, and her teachings have been doing for 150 years. The change is beginning to happen. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, the theme of the second half is HPB, her masters, their teachings for the times we're living in, and the mysterious association to Shambhala. So let's go and investigate this a little. The whys of Shambhala, the Mahachohan, and an inner college. This is some extracts, not verbatim, but pretty much verbatim from the Secret Doctrine. The Alim, or priests, the Hierophants initiated into the good and evil of this world, a college of priests. The chief of the Hierophants was known as Java Alim. Java Alim is the Mahachohan in another tongue. Many of you will be familiar with the Great Master's letter, the Mahachohan's letter. It's the only writing that we definitely know he put his name to. It's the most important document. And this great personage, the Ma, lives at this very day in a spot unknown to all but initiates, and the approaches to which are through trackless wilderness, untrodden by Jesuit or missionary foot, for it is beset by dangers fit to appall the most courageous explorers. Now this is a reference to Shambhala. And what does this mythical Shambhala really symbolize? Is it on earth? Is it a reflection of the divine? Is it both of those things? And these are a few more extracts from that same part of the Secret Doctrine. It's a secret place of meeting of those who possess esoteric wisdom. It resides in a metaphorical sea of knowledge, as a concrete reflection of higher states of being. Once a sea or lake where there were once 12 islands, it is now an oasis of incomparable beauty, a relic of the zodiac reflected on Earth. And that image at the bottom of the screen is actually Ladakh, Little Tibet, but that's one of many locations that HPB hints at, that have been given for Shambhala. In the glossary, we read that Shambhala is a most mysterious locality on account of its future associations. Interesting. A town or village mentioned in the Puranas, whence it is prophesied that the Kalki avatar will appear. The Kalki is Vishnu, the Messiah on the white horse of the Brahmins, Maitreya Buddha of the Buddhists, the Socios of the Parsis, and Jesus of the Christians. See the Revelations. All these messengers are to appear before the destruction of the world, or perhaps better speaking, the end of the Kali Yuga. It is in Shambhala that the future Messiah will be born. Occultism places it in the Himalayas. It is pronounced Shambhala. So, if we have time later on, we can show you a map of all the different places where Shambhala is being given its location in the various traditional mythologies. But as we read before, it's a place only known to the initiates. Now, what was the Master's philosophy that they thought really the future of humanity depended on, and that could be taken up by those who were willing to serve that cause? The heart of the philosophy is a source of the soul's power, and it was taught by HPB and the Masters of Wisdom, who are martyrs to that great cause of humanity. And she said often that a right understanding of this knowledge has an incomparable capability to heal the world. Now, we had a beautiful series of quotes from the Secret Doctrine, from the Voice of the Silence in the first part of the meeting. And while wondering how to present these great teachings and how to contextualize them in terms of what's going on in the world today, this short sentence from the Voice was particularly helpful, because it seems to give the understanding and clue to how real progress can come about. Ere thou canst settle in dhyana marga, self-analyzing reflection or consciousness, and call it thine, thy soul has to become as the ripe mango fruit, as soft and sweet as its bright golden pulp for others' woes, as hard as that fruit stone for thine own throes and sorrows, O conqueror of weal or happiness and woe. And it's that very Buddhistic twin element counterposing, putting together the opposites that I think is so helpful. We have to combine the soft and sweetness of our nature for others, people's difficulties, and to be hard on our own foibles in order to become conqueror of happiness and sadness. And I think that's a great help to the coming generations, because it will certainly show the right basis of compassion. And it's not a compassion that is sentimental. It's got to be a compassion that is disciplined, a compassion that has high standards, that expects only the best from people, but is prepared to help everybody without any distinction of race, creed, nationality, or certainly gender or other external conditions. Now, this from Judge is another aspect of that heart of the philosophy. It's more along the intellectual line of understanding the sort of occult power of where what we read in the previous one comes from. You know, where do you actually get the ability to overcome one's own defects and vices and personal problems? And Judge's advice from Musings on the True Theosophist Path is to live well your life. Seek to realize the meaning of every event, even the smallest. It's partly a mindfulness practice. But nature speaks to us if we listen. Strive to find the ever-living and wait for more light. The true initiate does not fully realize what he is passing through until his degree is received. If you are striving for light and initiation, remember this, that your cares will increase, your trials thicken, your family make new demands upon you. He who can understand and pass through these patiently, wisely, placidly, may hope. So this is something of great encouragement from Judge. Because when we begin to try to take ourselves in hand, we precipitate all those difficulties which we've procrastinated on. And when you're given advice like that, everything seems so much more able to be dealt with, really. Now, in terms of the question of Shambhala, we heard earlier on that there were 12 islands once in this inland sea, and that our present Shambhala was one of those 12. And we also asked the question, was Shambhala a physical place, which it undoubtedly was, but there's a great mystery connected to it. And was it also a reflection of some hierarchical order that exists in nature that had precipitated itself and come about in physical form? And this, from Raghavan Iyer's Theurgian transmutation, goes a step further. He says, one must learn to understand arcane symbols at many levels, become receptive to the idea that the Svetadvipa, the White Island of the Puranas, is one with the Shambhala of Buddhist tradition, identical with the abode of the builders, the luminous suns. Mount Meru and the mystical descent of the Ganges may be correlated with critical points within the spiritual spinal cord and the invisible brain. Yogic meditation transports one to inner centers wherein dwell the gods of light. Now, in the first talk, we heard from that reading in A Voice of a mystic vision of the sort of inner departments of nature, and that she would unveil all her kingdom to the ones who were fit to see her. And I think that unveiling is really probably what is written about here, is that when you come to think and contemplate on Shambhala, there's something quite mysterious about the what that place could possibly be, and that Shambhala is also reflected in part of our human anatomy, just as the Ganges flows metaphorically down the spinal cord. This is one of the possible locations of Shambhala, Mount Kailash, which is equated by the Hindus and the Buddhists with the mysterious Mount Meru. This is a wonderful picture of it at night with what looks like the Milky Way in the background. Many of you will know Lake Manasarovar is quite close to Mount Kailash. And that again is a scene of very remarkable and mystic attraction. HPB said in some places that the center of the master's work is beyond the Himalayas, which points it up towards the range of mountains right at the end of the Tibetan plateau. Maybe we could think about that a little bit more at the end. So I'm not sure how we're doing for time, but now we can have a question and answer period. So I'll hand back to Monica.
Okay.
Stop sharing.
Oh, okay.
Could he asking you to stop sharing?
Can you stop? Oh, wait a minute. Before you go away, I was going to ask you to stop share, but okay, you had something about, the three most precious. Forgive me.
Yeah, I can put them in the chat box if you like.
Okay, I did want to ask about that. Lao Tzu. Okay, so, well, thank you both, Miluka and Will, for a wonderful presentation. It seems that they each complemented one another, for sure. Beautiful ideas. I would like to start off. Well, I'm looking here. Judy Salzman has her hand up. So absolutely, Judy, you are first to go.
Yes, thank you, and Will, for one of the most informative presentations I've ever heard on White Lotus Day. There's always so much HP Blavatsky. There's no end to her depth for being on our level. But I just have a very simple comment. Where she was born, Ekaterinoslav, is now Dnipro, Ukraine. But she was Russian. She spoke Russian. She was related to the Tsar of Russia. And I just wonder if there's any intersignificance that now where she was born is internationally chartered as Ukraine. There's a Blavatsky House. There's a Ukrainian Institute of World Culture. And obviously Ukraine prefers a democratic government compared to what has happened again in Russia. So I just wondered if there's any modern occultic significance that you ever thought of to this particular situation that is occurring in our modern times.
I have been in touch from time to time with the Theosophical Society in Ukraine, and what I was told was that even though they're going through hard times, that this work provided them a great opportunity to practice compassion. They help people. They helping children. They keep doing meetings, even if it's sometimes they do it on Zoom, sometimes they do it in somebody's house in the US. The building, the area has suffered damage, but somehow the house is still, which was the museum in Ukraine, in that city that she was born, is still standing. And I don't know if it's because the Russians are aware of the significance, because they have status, and HPB is highly respected in Russia. After she died, she became like a very important person and well read by the Russian as well. And as you know, at the time that she
Ukraine was part of Russia, the Russian Empire at the time when she was alive. And I know I was told the museum secure safely all her letters, all her paintings, everything they have of value, they are safe. I was told that the last time I talked to them. So I don't think they are no longer in the museum. I think they moved them, safe place. And like I say, it seems like it's very ironic, and you're absolutely right, that so many years later, and look at what they're going through. But it's not the first time that Russia had conflict with. It used to have conflict with Poland. Poland was used to part of the empire. So it's this. I don't know what make these colonizers so greedy about obtaining land that at the end they won't be alive to even rebuild it, because what they cause is destruction. But it's very interesting what you said, and I really think we should have to think about what is the lesson here. But at least we know that from there, it was somebody wonderful that have helped humanity in many ways. I don't think we'll have more to that. Add to that.
We'd love it if everybody would turn their cameras on. I forgot to say that. Please forgive for this question and answer period. It would just be great if we, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Miluka. I see that Maurice has his hand up. Hi, Maurice.
Hello, and hello, everyone. Just to add to what was just said, which is very true, the museum house is part of the Fadeev estate, in which they are also celebrate HPB's grandmother, who was a great botanist. And considering she was a woman in Tsarist Russia in 1850, that was really amazing. And the museum is intact. And the only, so I just want to confirm that as well. And on May 20th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, the Institute of World Culture here in Santa Barbara will be having a joint seminar with the museum director and other persons in a kind of a more secular fashion, because it is a state museum, not owned by theosophists. But we will be having a joint seminar where I know one talk will be the influence of H.P. Blavatsky on George William Russell, the Irish poet and social reformer. So I just wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maurice. Laura has her hand up. Hi, Laura.
Hey, thank you, Will. Thank you, Maluka. It was a wonderful talk. There was an intermission at the beginning of the difficulties that our humanity is having on the planet right now. And we might think that these difficulties are in fact caused by the fact that we are transforming ourselves as a humanity, and that we experience, as Václav Havel says, a bit of a backlash from people that do not understand the globalization, the movement towards a unified global idea. And so what we're experiencing around the world is a reaction to maybe something that is happening in our humanity. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a coming to the surface of the dross, maybe, in getting ready for a new transforming. And we wondered what the speakers might have to add to that idea.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. That's quite thought-provoking. Well, it's true that we learn by making mistakes. I think I think the problem that we are facing today is a long history of reductive thought, and it's had a terrible effect on our respect for the environment, let alone our respect for each other. Now, as you say, we are that is part of the growing pains of growth, but my impression is that the masters taught the philosophy in order to try to reform our ideas of the purpose of life. And those three gems from Lao Tzu of gentleness, simplicity, frugality, and humility are just an expression of the same teaching. And these are the things which are going to help us to finally turn the corner. I mean, at the moment, we've got huge and very welcome advances going on in the overthrow of this reductive scientific materialism, partly brought on, curiously enough, by the challenges of quantum physics. There's a group now that started, very active, called the Essentia Foundation. Probably some of you will know them. And it's comprised of mostly scientists who have a very holistic way of looking at the world. They're quite a spiritual take on scientific research. And they're quite confident that even though the materialistic paradigm is still very strong in mainstream science, that the corner has been turned. But I think the question that I've got is, do these realizations that come out of science, such as the one that's being promoted by the Essentia Foundation, which is a bit of an extension of pantheism or panentheism, it's called analytical idealism, does that have the depth and breadth and quality of the perennial wisdom, the ideas of unity, integration, self-sacrifice, service to the community, and those types of things, which are really the things that are going to make life worth living. So, yeah, I don't know if that's really answered your question, but that's really what came up to me when you posed that difficult question. Well, what do you think, Maluka? You've got a view on these things?
I think you answered quite well. It is very difficult to find out what are the lessons here to be learned, but certainly, I don't know, but maybe this is bringing more attention to their teachings, and I'm just wondering how come the city, after many years later, separated from the Russian Empire, and that means that maybe that group of people who live in this area, maybe they are more, obviously, they're looking for freedom, but I wonder if HPB books and influence has something to do with that.
A good question. As you say that, Maluka, I had the question in my mind that Laura touched on, and certainly Will did, about, that as we move further into this Kali Yuga cycle, there's a obviously a bad view, but there's also a good view. And this student has noticed the falling away of masses from organized religion. And I'll always believe that, at least in part, this is due to the New Age mother, as she was termed, that gave us opportunities to think independently while holding on to and becoming more aware of our own divinity, and thereby becoming more responsible. So I'm wondering if, these terrible falling away, it seems, from the overall spirituality is in fact part of a must-do thing, let's say, for man to come into more of a reliability on his own divinity, at which, if it is that in truth, then it certainly would not mean that they'd be doing away with the guardian wall and the movement of every great spiritual master. So I see Laura's hand up. What do you think, Laura?
Monica, and maybe the contrast of the light and the dark, the contrast of this Kali Yuga age, gives us a real opportunity to express the gentleness, the simplicity, the frugality, and the humility, and to see within our own nature in this Kali Yuga where we need to make our self-analysis and our self-adjustments in order that we may express those precious things that Lao Tzu brought to our attention.
Yes.
So we need the contrasts of the age.
Beautiful. Yes, we're here in duality for just that reason, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Maurice?
Yes. I can't remember where the sources are. One is Raghavan Iyer, but I also think that might be in the Secret Doctrine, where, yes, we're in Kali Yuga, but there's also a golden age in Kali Yuga. So it's really a matter of consciousness. And to the extent to which we can, as has been pointed out, keep working on our best qualities and our best virtues and helping others by sharing the teachings or other kinds of ways in which people really have such needs, as well as getting together as like-minded people, we have the opportunity to help with being in a golden age, even in Kali Yuga. It's not easy, and I think it has a lot of requisites, like sacrifice, unconditionality, because this age is so conditional, because the Kali Yuga is all about money. And the minute you get money, you're conditional. And the more, and money, status, etc. But if people can really act out of love and doing things for their own sake, and combine that with calmness and meditation, deliberation, the real beauty of all of us coming together as a nucleus of universal brotherhood is right there and right here. So there is a source, I think, of optimism, especially for maintaining the light for the future. And the real challenge is how to transmit that light when we're not here anymore.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see. Judy had her hand up again.
Yes, I just wanted to continue what Maurice was saying about the golden age. I know that there is this idea of Shambhala that Will spoke about, and I have thought about it before. Must be a state of consciousness, yet it could be a real place in Tibet or even in the Swiss mountains. The HPB wrote a book called The Land of the Gods, which was published under a pseudonym of a male name. where she apparently met as a young woman, and there were adepts there. And it seems that Shambhala is always someplace, and that the golden age is really possible, like when we get together like this and talk about ideas that
Yes.
are so profound and so important to humanity, that it is the kind of little golden age we can have for a while. Anyway, I wonder what you others think about that, and what Shambhala really is also. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Judy. It ties into a question that I had for Will, when he was talking about Shambhala and Mount Meru and the Ganges and the spiritual spinal cord that we're all endowed with. And there was something I wrote that said yogic meditative 2 hour. What I was wanting to know is, were you, Will, speaking about the chakras when you spoke of the spiritual spinal cord and whatnot? And if so, is there a particular center within us that is likened unto Shambhala in that regard? In other words, do we have a corresponding, given that we're made of everything, the idea that somehow this, if we could only purify, well, if this student could only purify to the extent where that Shambhala could make itself present to the mind and heart somehow. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, Monica. I'm not sure I can. It seems to be something so precious that that type of level of knowledge is restricted to the initiates. I mean, not just the location of Shambhala, but the goings on there. What we are told is that every 7 years, there are a collection of masters from all around the world. I mean, in her article, Lamas and Druzes, HPB says that the Okals, if I pronounce that correctly, who are the elder Druze initiates. And by the way, the Druze have a preserved, one of the few remaining preserved practices of the wisdom tradition still going in the country. So that's really interesting. And in fact, currently they're going through a very hard time with the new Syrian government. But that's something we ought to be aware of, actually, because they are, well, every 7 years, one of the elders goes to meet. In the Lamas and Druze article, HPB describes it as Western China from memory. And in other places in the teaching, she says that these regular 7-year meetings go on. But that's not really answering your question, which is more about the metaphysical aspect of Shambhala and how it relates to the inner higher realities of the human and on Earth, of which they're both reflections. But I don't think that's something very easy to describe. I mean, perhaps someone else would like to.
Just a thought, thinking it was. Well, Jonathan has his hand up. What do you think, Jonathan?
It seems like an overlap between the two talks was this idea of masters. That HPB, Miluka said that HPB paid a heavy price to introduce this idea. And Will's talk was about this beautiful,
Yes.
soul satisfying idea of just thinking about Shambhala. And the masters really. We don't really have much time just because we're kind of past time anyway. But I was just wondering if anyone could, if the two speakers could refer to why it was so important to introduce this idea of the masters.
Well, the ideas of the masters, they are the guardian of life, right? Evolution. So we, maybe in some remote past lives, perhaps we were at the level higher state than we are right now, but we maybe fail and we back here, didn't pass a grade, come back here. However, others probably are more advanced than we are and conceal because we know that even what was it, the person that's supposed to substitute the Dalai Lama, the mother and the child, disappear. So, it had become very dangerous. Not that it wasn't dangerous back then, right? But I really think that they are with us. You will attract them if you have a pure heart and the desire to help humanity unselfishly, And like HPC said, that only love can unite and bring things together in the world. That's the negative force of life. They're so compassionate, these masters. They're here to help us, but we need to open the door for them too, by our actions and words. And also, the more I thank you for this opportunity, because with the voice of silence really hit me really hard. And that voice is inside us. Like Buddha used to say, there is a key to your answers, but you never know where to look. It's inside you.
We want to thank you both for making this such a beautiful event, honoring the New Age Mother, HPB, and everyone else. Both Miluka and Will, thank you. We ask all of you come back next week and be with us. You guys are great company. So I guess that's it for now. Namaste, everybody.